Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The rising Nigerian prospect Efe Ajagba, who's currently 13-0, says that skill is what's required to beat unified champion Anthony Joshua, and he has the skills to beat Joshua. So we're going to talk about those statements and sort of get into sort of what he's saying here, the exact quotes. But also there's going to be a number of fans who will be scoffing at these claims from Ajagba. And based off some of his recent performances, I think there is a bit of merit in sort of looking at what he's saying with a bit of side-eye here. Because the first thing that struck me with these comments, which we'll get to, I was thinking, is this more about PR purposes? Because he's recently left the PBC. He's going to have his first fight soon on ESPN under his new Top Rank deal. And it made me think, is this just to remind people that he is still here, that he is still a guy in the division that's coming up, and he believes that he can go somewhere within the division and potentially become champion at some point. Because when you think about Efe Ajagba and his sort of public persona, doesn't really have one to any real extent. Sure, he posts on social media, but it's pretty vanilla stuff. A lot of training clips, and it's not really that controversial. He hasn't been one that's come out and said, too many controversial statements. So this is sort of out of left field to some extent. But in some ways I thought, well, it is sort of a good PR tactic, because whenever someone, a rising heavyweight, someone with a bit of profile, starts to say something about either one of the champions or a top contender, it gets picked up. And in this case, it was an interview with Sky Sports. He made some comments, and then it's sort of gone around other boxing media and brought it to social media, YouTube, etc. So I think some of this is deliberately sort of stating a few things, knowing he's going to get some headlines, and some headlines he will want to boost his profile. Just let people, remember that he's still on the scene and will be fighting soon. It seemed a little bit out of character, some of what he's saying, but at the same time, I do believe that he is supremely confident and does believe that he is developing. It is going to be a guy that can cause a number of heavyweights some issues. And remembering there's a number of fans that have written Ajagba off because of some recent performances, but we'll get to that. So his comments talking to Sky Sports. The people would support Joshua because he is the heavyweight champ. Skill would beat Joshua, not power. Me and Joshua both have the power, but skills control the power. I have more skills. The best weapon of Joshua's is the left hook and right uppercut. He doesn't have a good jab. I respect him. He is the heavyweight champion. I respect everything about him, his talent and his potential. He is a humble guy. People are saying that I talk Joshua down, but I don't want to do that. Joshua is from Nigeria, so he is part of Africa too. And Ajagba from Nigeria, and Joshua having Nigerian roots. But of these statements, because I think for some people it will just maybe not compute, that it will feel a little bit jarring that Efe Ajagba, a rising prospect who's had his own sort of trials and tribulations, is saying he's got more skills, even at this point, than Anthony Joshua, and he can beat Joshua with those skills. And it's a little bit yes and it's a little bit no, and or maybe it's a bigger part no, because I think on the skills front, offensively, he's actually pretty decent. He does have good power. He's got a very good 1-2. He's got a good engine, and he does have a good jab. There is a lot to like about Efe Ajagba's offensive game, but he's not the complete product, and we've seen that in some recent fights. And we're just talking about the offensive end here, and I'll get to the defensive side soon, because he is still a very raw prospect, especially on that side of the game. But offensively, he's still working on a couple of things, and he has been accused before of being a little bit flat-footed, a little bit upright. But in terms of the power, the jab, the number of punches that he throws, he's got a good engine, and he mixes the power up on his punches. Sometimes the punch variation hasn't been great, but he has been working on that. It's clear that he's getting better and better on the offensive end. But defensively, that's where his real issues are. He doesn't have a lot of head movement, and he does seem to take a lot of punches. And some of these guys that he's been taking punches from, the likes of Iago Kaladze and Ali Erendemirezhian, is the best example. These are not guys who are operating anywhere near world level. And I think Ajagba's probably taken more punches in his more recent fights. Even against Razvan Kajanu, he was still taking some shots. Probably taken more shots than Joshua may have in his entire career. And when you think that against Demirezian, there was collectively a couple of thousand punches thrown, and Demirezian was landing pretty easily. I think in terms of the defensive skills, Joshua and Ajagba, it's night and day, because Joshua, while he's not, completely polished or anything, he does actually have underrated sort of boxing ability overall. And it's not to say that Ajagba is saying that he doesn't have skills. He just believes his skills are better than Joshua's. Not on the defensive end, at least. And I think on the offensive end, Joshua is clearly more polished. And it's been clear since Ajagba stepped up. And bear in mind, I do actually have a lot of time for F.A. Ajagba. I haven't thrown out, him out onto the scrap heap after a couple of performances where he didn't look sterling, like some have. Some people are completely writing him off. I think he's been in the right fights at the right time for development. He's been getting tests at a certain level, and it has been testing him, and he's been learning. He's been getting better. Under Ronnie Shields, he was progressing. Obviously, we know now that he's leaving for Top Rank, this new deal. He's got a new trainer, Kei Karoma. And they've spoken about, wanting to build more head movement in, because that's one of the things that was a real flaw, especially in those fights like Demirezian and also Kaladze. The head just doesn't move. And sometimes he is just too hittable. He's a little bit flat-footed and doesn't have... And this is where I sort of think on the defensive end of the scale. You can kind of look at Joshua and Ajagba and go, what development have we seen? What wrinkles have we seen them implement and learn from? And I guess the biggest one in terms of Joshua, he's shown that he can adapt from fight to fight, different fight plans, but also after losing to Andy Ruiz Jr., defensively in the second fight, he implemented a game plan which was more safety first, on the back foot. He showed a lot that we hadn't seen before, that he could use his legs for 12 rounds and outbox his opponents. And I would argue that in that fight, his jab was very good. So I'm not sure it's fair for Ajagba to say that Joshua doesn't have a jab. Ajagba's basically had most of his opponents been standing right in front of him for his whole career. So it's not like we've seen Ajagba really using those weapons, those offensive weapons that are good. He's got good power against guys that can actually make him think a bit more than he already has, because you think Razvan Kajanu, Ali Aaron Demirezian, Iago Kaladze, there's not a lot of nuance in what they're doing. It's not high-level sort of technical stuff. It's not high-level movement or things that would make Ajagba really have to dig deep into his tool bag to sort of respond in kind. So at the moment, I mean, it's night and day in terms of the opponent, and I think in terms of the defensive end, Ajagba has got a lot to work on. And he's recognized that. And his trainers, both of them, even Kei Karoma, has recognized that they have to get better. The movement, the head movement in particular, has to be better. He's got to be a more elusive target. And because he had been relying on his power, especially in some of those early fights, maybe it had lulled him into a false sense of security that he was going to be banging guys out of there just by landing a 1-2, which had been the case up until he fought Ali Aaron Demirezian. And Demirezian didn't go away, and he actually fired back. Nothing that Ajagba was hurt with, but he was managing to catch him a lot. He was dropped ultimately by Kaladze before stopping him, and obviously even Kajanu was having spots of success in their fight. So I know some people are going to be sort of all over Ajagba for these sorts of comments, saying that he's got the skills to beat Joshua. I see him as a work in progress, and he can probably close the gap, but he's got more work to do. I think at the moment, Joshua has proven he's got more wrinkles to his game and is the more skillful boxer at this point. But it's not to say that Ajagba can't get there, but it is an optimistic statement to say he beats Joshua on skills alone. Sure, you might be able to make a case that he could knock Joshua out the power, but that's not what Ajagba is saying. He's saying his skills will actually control the fight and beat Joshua. I can't see it at this point, but I like what F.A. Ajagba is saying in terms of the confidence, and obviously this, I think, is in part for PR purposes, to get his name back out there, and it's a little out of character that these sorts of comments have been made, but, it's heavyweight boxing, we hear this all the time. Just because someone isn't expected to say something like this doesn't mean that they're not capable of it. And he probably fully believes it too, to some extent. I'm sure that there is a part of him that believes he beats Anthony Joshua. Boxers in general can be slightly deluded, building themselves up in their minds. But at this point, Ajagba's got a lot to work on. But what did you make of it? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.